Hey there guys, what's up? This is Firefreeze and I'm playing Insurgency Sandstorm, and in this video I want to talk a little bit about PvP and PvE, and I have a specific question: is PvP always better than PvE? Now, I used to play PvP almost exclusively until I started playing these realistic NWI games, and they made me change my mind about PvE. Now, if you're thinking, why do I want to play against the environment when I can actually play against real players? I gotta tell you, this is not about switching from PvP to PvE. PvP is always fun, we know that. It's PvE that's usually overlooked. So this is about recognizing PvE and its potential. So before we get any further into this, let's take a look at the game and see what makes this kind of game different to your usual arcade type shooter game. So down here you can see the current objective and the time, and the location of that objective is also floating about on the screen, but it's quite small so it doesn't really distract you. And you can see the friendlies, your teammates, on the screen. And finally you can see your inventory information just popping up for a couple of seconds whenever you reload or switch weapons. But what you don't see is a minimap or a health bar or any other similar element that you would usually see on an FPS interface. And that makes what's on the screen less like a video game interface and more like a video playback, like you're watching a video clip or a film, and in this case a war film. And the gameplay itself is pretty hardcore. There's no healing, you don't heal in this game, there are no meds. If you get shot, you die. Now that goes for friendly fire as well. You can accidentally kill your teammates if you're not careful. So all these things sort of work towards making it a realistic war experience for you. With this penny plane interface and all these hardcore elements, the game is offering you a clearly defined mindset, and if you can give yourself into that, you will find yourself in a war film. Now at this point I want to mention that all these things that we talked about so far are fundamentally equal for both PvP and PvE. Let's keep going. So you're in a war film, but all these elements, they're just creating the perfect setting for you. It's location, you're the cast. What brings life to this is how you behave and how your enemy behaves. So how do you behave? Let's look at that first. Now of course you are free to get yourself a really powerful weapon and try to speed capture everything like a super soldier in PvE, or try and rush your way through those points in PvP. That's one way to do it, but since the game offers us this realistic war film like setting, let's try to contribute to that. So let's just hang back, stick together and slow things down a bit. By the way, these are pretty basic stuff I'm covering right now, but if you're a player who's new to FPS, especially these military games, you might find this helpful. So let's say you have a full team. Now whoever's playing as the commander of the team, right now is your time to work together with your observer and call in fire support on that point before your team moves in.
Get me explosive artillery on this target! Station, this is observer. We need you to fire explosive artillery here.
Now in the meantime, the sniper of the team sets himself up on a rooftop or a hilltop nearby and takes out any visible targets while the rest of the team awaits fire support.
Observer, this is station. Understood. Explosive rounds on the way.
And ideally, all your teammates have microphones for communication, so you all know what's going on and who's doing what. And then, when the time is right, then you move in. You breach in together like a real squad, and you clear the premises room by room.
Okay, yalla.
This kind of behavior on your part as the player contributes to this realistic setting of the game and keeps things in shape. Okay, so this is all your behavior. Now you can control how you behave in a game, but you have no control over your enemy's behavior. And now we're finally coming to a critical point. So in PvE, the AI will behave the same way and they will contribute to this realistic simulation-like setting of the game. Players in PvP, on the other hand, will show you very different behavior from player to player. You might find some players playing into this kind of setting, while the majority shows you typical arcade-type multiplayer behavior. And that can easily disturb your mindset and ruin this simulative gameplay. So what do I mean by this typical arcade-type multiplayer behavior? Now take the jump spam for example. It's the constant jumping to dodge bullets. So am I saying it's bad? Not really. It's just not realistic enough for that setting that we were contributing to. Arcade shooter is a very fast-paced gameplay. It's all about competing with each other. And some players don't even care about an objective. They just want to get loads and loads of kills. Now is that bad? Of course not. It's a video game and everyone's allowed to enjoy it the way they want. So some of these players would just run towards the enemy, constantly jumping to dodge bullets and try to get some kills before they die. And it doesn't matter when they die because they will be respawned in about 30 seconds or so. And then you go back to the front and do the same dance again. Now I behave the same way sometimes in a PvP. It's a lot of fun, even when I'm focused on playing my part in the team towards the objective. The second I realize there's a guy shooting at me, defeating that guy immediately becomes my next mission. And there's great thrill in defeating an actual real player, that you don't really care about what the rest of the team is doing. You don't really care if your command is calling in fire support or not. And you don't care so much about how the environment looks, if it's realistic or not. We see many players turning down the amount of details in the environment to get a smoother gameplay because that's more important. And it wouldn't really bother you if there were loads of unrealistic stuff like minimaps and health bars on your interface. And the same goes for your enemy's behavior. It doesn't matter how realistic it is. In fact, when I'm in this competitive mindset, it doesn't even matter how realistic my weapons are, as long as my enemies are treated the same way, because it's all about competing. So it's a different environment to what we were talking about earlier in this video. Because for that we needed all this. A clear interface, realistic weapons, realistic environment. All these things are essential for that simulative gameplay. And you just can't have people jumping about like bunnies.
Yalla, let's go!
So back in the 80s, there were these run and gun arcade games, I mean real arcade games. And there were two things you could do, dodge and shoot. Dodge the bullets or any other projectiles and shoot the bad guys. So it was all about how quickly can you dodge and how accurately can you shoot. And how fast are you in the combination. And dodging was done by movement. And you see that same concept in modern games. Take CSGO for example. It's all about those two things, dodging and shooting, and dodging is done by movement. So players have always moved about to stay alive. It's one of the most fundamental things in shooters. It's rule number 1, don't stand still or you'll get shot. But in the last couple of years I have noticed an elevation in this, and I think it has something to do with all the Battle Royale games. I have seen players outside Battle Royale games, in actual military shooters, constantly spamming the movement keys while they're standing around, and when they're on the move, they would jump spam every second or third step. Now it's okay to do this in a Battle Royale game. Take Fortnite for example, you're supposed to be jumping all the time in that game, and if you didn't, it's a huge disadvantage because everyone else does. And there is no illusion to be shattered by behaving this way. However, back in our simulation, there is an illusion. It's the one we created. Well, the game started it, but we decided to take it to the next level. So it's more than just dodge and shoot, there's a bit of role playing involved. Literally. We said it's like a war film, and so each and every one of us in the team are playing a specific role in that film. We don't have to do this, we don't have to play it like this. There are many ways of playing this, like I said earlier. Especially in PvE, you can get yourself a big ass gun and try to speed capture everything. But if you're choosing to do this, that means you want something more from the game. So you choose to do all these extra things that you don't have to do. you use your microphone to communicate with your team, you stick together, you take it slow and you listen to your commander, you finally get into this mindset and feel like you're in a real squad. And then if you see an enemy hopping towards you like a bunny, that'll snap you right out of it. And all of a sudden you want to dance because he's dancing, and you don't want to lose to this guy, you want to get him before he gets you. So the whole simulation falls apart. Now if you weren't simulating, it would be great fun competing with this guy, but you are simulating something, and unfortunately this guy's behavior doesn't really play into that setting. And you can't really blame the player for that, because if a player masters movement spam and jump spam in a battle royale game, he's going to use that skill in any game he goes into. And that's the point. Even though this game is designed to be very different to those traditional arcade type shooter games like CSGO, players can bring their arcade shooter behavior, their battle royale behavior into this game. Which is not a problem if you're simply playing competitive mode, but if you're trying to do a simulation, you have much better chance of achieving that with PvE. So I think I finally beat my point to death, but if I may take one last shot for overkill, PvP is great. Competing against another real player is one of the most thrilling experiences you can have online. But whenever you're in the mood for realistic simulative gameplay, my recommendation to you is definitely PvE. And that clearly answers the question we had at the beginning of this video: is PvP always better than PvE? Now there was a time when PvP was always better than PvE, and that's because the AI in games like this was simply challenging enough. But there have been significant improvements throughout the last couple of years. So PvE doesn't mean it's easy. You might get more kills playing against bots, but to actually win the round, you have to play a very different game as opposed to what you would do in PvP. Now unlike in PvP, you only get one life per objective, so you really have to be tactical and careful. And the AI is programmed to use the environment really well and rather unpredictable. While some of them show you deadly accuracy, some others behave like noobs.
We're taking B!
But they work together as a team towards their objective. And what they're not programmed to do is spawn killing, cheating, or finding any other cheap ways to get loads of kills. So you get a fair chance of winning or losing in a tough environment without anyone upsetting your mindset or disturbing your simulation. And even then, for you to get the best out of this, you should put together your own team. Because if you just join a random server, there will always be players who want to do their own thing. Which is fine because it's their game too, and everyone's allowed to enjoy the game the way they like to. But for you to get the best out of a game like this, find yourself a Discord group or find people on Steam who want to have a similar experience, so you can have the right people for the right job and feel like you guys are all in your very own war film. So that's it from me guys, thank you so much, I really appreciate you taking your valuable time to watch this video. Let me know what you think of PvP and PvE down below in the comment section. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, I put a lot of thoughts and work into it, and thanks again for listening to me rambling on and on. Let's do it again sometime soon.